Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are stepping into a time machine, but not to one of those glossy, perfect eras of history you see in the movies.
No, none at all.
We're going to a time of absolute chaos, a time when the map of North India was shattered like a dropped mirror, and we're going to look at the one man who, tried to glue it all back together.
It is an incredibly dramatic period. We're talking about the 7th century AD, the golden age of the Guptas. It's over. It has collapsed, and North India is, well, it's a free-for-all. And rising out of that dust is Harshavardhana.
And this is a very special deep dive. We are welcoming you, the learner, to what is a very targeted session. This is a full summary for UPSC, focused specifically by the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel.
That's right.
We aren't just telling stories today. We are doing a deep analysis with a really heavy emphasis on previous year question linkage, those PYQs that, let's be honest, can determine whether you pass or fail.
Precisely. We're going to be dissecting Chapter 10 of the Tamil Nadu Board Class XI history book, which covers Harsha's reign from 606 to 647 AD. But we're not just going to read it, we're going to read between the lines.
Okay, but before we unsheath our swords and dive into all the politics and drama, I have a very important message for everyone listening. If you are finding value in these deep dives, if this helps you visualize history and actually retain these facts, we just have to ask you humbly to please subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP channel.
And if you are capable, and we know times can be tough, so really, only if you are capable, please consider supporting this mission on Patreon. It's that support, honestly, that ensures we can keep the lights on and keep bringing this super useful content to you.
Absolutely. And a massive, massive shout out to all our existing supporters. You aid us so much in creating this content. I mean, you are the real patrons of this modern-day Nalanda we're trying to build here.
And of course, don't forget to like the video and share your valuable comments. We actually do love reading them, and it really helps the algorithm find other serious learners just like you.
Just a quick logistics check. For those of you scrambling to take notes, don't worry. We have you covered. We've got free notes with practice previous year questions, the PYQs, available on our public Telegram channel.
And for the really serious learners who want the full archive, there is the private Telegram library. That gives you access to all the videos in this entire series at once, plus all the organized premium notes. And we're talking detailed notes, extra PYQs, and even model mains answers.
To get in on that, just DM us on the public Telegram channel. Okay, business aside, let's set the scene. The year is roughly 600 AD. The Guptas are a memory. What does the political landscape of North India actually look like?
Imagine a complete power vacuum. I mean, the Gupta Empire provided a central authority, right? It was like a roof over the House of North India. When the Huns invaded and the Guptas eventually disintegrated, that roof it blew off. And suddenly you had all these feudal lords, these small kings and local chieftains, all declaring independence. It was a period of profound political disorder.
So it's basically a battle royale?
It is exactly a battle royale. And in this chaos, a family known as the Pushyapudis starts to, flex their muscles a bit. They were originally feudatories, subordinates of the Guptas.
Oh, interesting. So they were mid-level managers who saw an opportunity.
That's a great way to put it. They were based in Tanswar, which is just north of modern-day Delhi.
The classic, fine, I'll do it myself moment.
That was totally the attitude. Now, the founder was a guy named Pushyapudi, but the first person to really make a splash was Prabhakar. He's the one who took the title Maharaja.
King of Kings. That's a pretty bold claim when you're just starting out.
It is, but he had the military strength to back it up. However, before we get into the Game of Thrones drama of his succession, and believe me, it is dramatic, we need to pause. As a UPSC aspirant, you can't just know the story. You have to know the detective work behind it. How do we know anything about a king who ruled 1,400 years ago?
Right, the sources. This is critical for the exam. Usually for ancient history, it's a lot of guesswork. But I've heard Harsha is a bit different.
Harsha is unique. He really is. Because we have what you could call a surplus of high-quality literary sources. We have a spotlight on him in a way we don't for many other rulers. But, and this is the big trap, that spotlight is colored.
Colored how? Like biased?
Extremely biased. Let's look at our primary witness, a man named Bana. He was the Astana Kavi, which means the court poet of Harsha. He wrote the Harshacharita.
Harshacharita, so the deeds of Harsha.
Exactly. And it's culturally massive. It's the first historical biography in Sanskrit literature. But just think about his job title for a second. Court poet.
Yeah, he's on the payroll. He's the PR guy.
He is 100% the PR guy. He is writing for his patron, the man who signs his checks. So he isn't going to write about Harsha's failures or his bad moods or any strategic blunders. Of course not.
He portrays Harsha as this god among men, an ideal ruler. So while the book gives us incredible detail about court life, the military, social customs, all of that, we have to read it with a massive pinch of salt. It's a laudatory account, not objective history.
Okay, so Bana is the hype man. Who gives us the reality check? Is there anyone who wasn't on the payroll?
Thankfully, yes. We have a foreign correspondent, the very famous Chinese traveler Xuanzang, also known as Yuan Chuang.
Ah, the pilgrim. He came to India looking for Buddhist texts, right?
He did. And he ended up spending roughly 8 years inside Harsha's empire. His book, The Siyuki, which translates to The Records of the Western World, is just invaluable.
Why? Because he was an outsider.
Precisely.
Right.
Because he was an outsider, he noticed things a local would just take for granted. He wrote about the administration, the tax system, the social structure, the economy, things Bana just wasn't interested in.
So was he unbiased, or did he have his own agenda? Well, nobody is ever truly unbiased. He was devout Buddhist, and Harsha became a great patron of Buddhism later in his life. So Xuanzang definitely sees Harsha through, let's say, rose-colored glasses too. He calls him a perfect Buddhist ruler.
I see.
But, and this is crucial for PYQ we'll discuss later, he accidentally reveals some dark truths about the state of law and order, which completely contradicts the glowing reports.
Interesting. Okay, and didn't Harsha write some things himself?
He did. This is what makes him so fascinating. He wasn't just a warrior king, he was an intellectual. Harsha is credited with authoring 3 Sanskrit plays, Ratnavali, Nagananda, and Priyadarsika.
Now, hold on. Did he actually write them? Or was this like a modern celebrity memoir where a ghostwriter does all the work and the celebrity just slaps their name on it?
That's a fair question, and it's debated. But most historians believe he had a genuine literary hand in them, or at least was a very active patron in their creation. Ratnavali is a comedy about a princess. Nagananda is really interesting. It has these deep Buddhist themes about self-sacrifice.
So what does that tell us about him?
It shows us how he wanted to be seen. He wanted to be perceived as a philosopher king, a man of high culture, not just, a brute with a sword. He was part of his image making.
That's a fascinating layer to his personality. Okay, so we've got the PR guy and the foreign correspondent. What about hard evidence? I mean, stones don't lie, right?
Epigraphy, yes. The inscriptions. We have the Madhuban plate and the Sanpad inscription. These are absolutely crucial for fixing the dates, the chronology of his reign.
Yeah.
But there is one inscription that still gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. The Banskhera inscription.
Why that one specifically?
Because it contains the actual signature of Harsha.
No way! You're kidding. We have his autograph.
We do. It's written in this beautiful calligraphic script. It reads, Svahasto Mama Maharajajiraja Sri Harshasha, which means this is the signature of me, the great king of kings, the illustrious Harsha.
Wow.
When you see it, it bridges that gap of centuries instantly. You realize this was a real man. He held a stylus, he practiced his signature, he signed this order. It makes it all so real.
That is incredibly cool. Okay, so we have the sources, we have the bias warning. Now let's get into the story. You mentioned the Game of Thrones aspect. The father, Harshavardhana, dies. What happens next?
It kicks off with a truly tragic succession crisis.
Yeah.
The eldest son, Rajavardhana, he's the heir. He ascends the throne. Harsha is the younger brother, the loyal supporter in the background. And they have a sister, Rajyasri.
And in ancient politics, a sister is always a chess piece.
Always. She was married to the Maukari ruler, a man named Grihavarman, who ruled from the powerful city of Kanauj. This was a super alliance. The Pushabutis of the Tanswar and the Maukaris of Kanauj united by marriage. It looked like they were poised to dominate all of North India.
But clearly someone didn't like that idea.
The villains of our story enter this stage here. The ruler of Malwa, a man named Devagupta, and the ambitious ruler of Bengal, named Sasanka, they formed a confederacy, an alliance. They were absolutely terrified of this growing Tanswar-Kanauj power block.
So they decided to strike first.
They struck hard and fast. They launched a surprise attack on Kanauj. They killed Grihavarman, the sister's husband, and they threw the sister, Rajyasri, into a prison cell.
That's not just a border skirmish. That's an act of total war.
It is. The news reaches Taneswar. Rajavardhana, the new king, the elder brother, is beside himself with fury. He takes his cavalry. The sources say he barely even waits for the infantry, and he just thunders towards Kanauj.
On a revenge mission.
A pure revenge mission. And he's successful at first. He smashes the Malwa army. Devagupta is defeated easily.
Okay, so revenge is served, 1 down, 1 to go.
Not yet. The other player, the Bengal ruler Sasanka, he's much more cunning. He realizes he probably can't beat Rajavardhana in a fair fight on the battlefield. So he invites him to a meeting, a peace conference, to negotiate a truce.
Oh no, I know where this is going. It's a trap.
A classic trap. Rajavardhana, perhaps flushed with his recent victory, perhaps a bit naive, he goes to the meeting without his full army. And Sasanka treacherously murders him.
That is literally the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. Betrayal at the negotiation table.
It's an almost perfect parallel. So now, just stop and look at the situation from Harsha's perspective. He is 16 years old.
16? At 16, I was worrying about my driver's license, not the fate of a kingdom.
Exactly. His father is dead. His brother has just been murdered. His brother-in-law was murdered. His sister is a widow who has escaped from prison and fled into the dense Vindhya forests, and she's probably suicidal. And the armies of Bengal and Malwa are at the gates of his kingdom.
That is an absolute nightmare scenario. The pressure on a 16-year-old must have been crushing.
He ascends the throne in the year 606 AD. This date is important. It's the start of the Harsha era. And his first mission isn't conquer India. It isn't build a great empire. It is simply find my sister.
Does he find her?
The Harshacharita dramatizes this beautifully, of course. Harsha rushes into the Vindhya forest, getting help from local forest tribes. And he finds Rajayasri just as she is mounting a funeral pyre to commit self-immolation, or sati. He saves her at the very last second. He pulls her away from the flames.
Talk about cinematic. You can just see that scene.
It is. And once the family is safe, or as safe as they can be, the mood shifts completely. Now it's about vengeance. Harsha turns his eyes towards Sasanka.
The man who killed his brother.
The very same. Harsha marches on Kanauj. He drives Sasanka out. Now, Sasanka retreats to Bengal and actually remains a thorn in Harsha's side for a very long time. But Harsha manages to secure Kanauj. And here is the geopolitical pivot point that every single UPSC aspirant needs to understand.
Okay, I'm listening.
Harsha makes a crucial decision. He decides not to go back to his ancestral capital of Thienswar.
He stays in Kanauj.
He makes Kanauj his new capital.
Why is that such a big deal? I mean, capitals move, right?
It is a massive deal. For nearly 1,000 years before this, Pataliputra, modern-day Patna, was the center of political power in India. The Mauryas, the Guptas, they all ruled from Magadha in the east. Harsha shifting the capital to Kanauj marks the shift of India's political center of gravity to the west, to the Gangetic Doab.
Okay, why the Doab? What was so special about Kanauj?
Two things: geography and economy. It was on elevated ground, so it was relatively safe from the floods that plagued Pataliputra. More importantly, it was smack in the middle of the major trade routes. It controlled the incredibly fertile lands between the Ganges and the Yamuna rivers.
So prime real estate.
The best. And from this point on, for the next few centuries, Kanauj becomes the prize. Everyone fights for Kanauj. The famous tripartite struggle between the Palas, Pratiharas, and Rashtrakutas, that was all about controlling Kanauj. Harsha is the one that started that trend.
That's a huge point. So he secures the north. How much land are we actually talking about? What was the extent of his direct empire?
Under his direct control, he consolidated pretty much all of modern Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Orissa. Then you had other states like Kashmir, Sindh, Vallabhi in Gujarat, and even Kamarupa, which is modern Assam, that acknowledged his sovereignty. They weren't directly ruled by him, but they paid tribute. He was, without a doubt, the master of the north.
But the map of India has a south, too.
And that is where the story hits a wall. A very big, very firm wall. Harsha, now confident, maybe even overconfident after his successes in the north, marches his massive army south to the Narmada River.
Okay.
He fully intends to cross it and conquer the Deccan to become the ruler of all of India.
And who is waiting for him on the other bank?
Pulakesin II, the greatest ruler of the Chalukya dynasty of Atapi. This is the heavyweight championship fight of the 7th century. Harsha versus Pulakesin, north versus south.
And what's the result?
Harsha loses.
The boy wonder loses.
After all that, he is soundly defeated. The sources suggest a combination of factors: the difficult terrain, the river crossing, and apparently the strength of the Chalukyan elephant corps. It was just too much for Harsha's army. He was forced to retreat.
Now, do we have solid proof of this defeat? Because I'm guessing his court poet, Bana probably didn't write a chapter about his boss getting beaten.
You are absolutely right. The Harshacharita is completely silent on this. It's a very convenient omission. Pulakesin made sure the whole world knew about his victory. The famous eye-hole inscription, which is Pulakesin's own record, details this victory in glowing terms. It talks about how Harsha, or joy, melted away in the face of the Chalukyan army. Even Xuanzang, who admired Harsha, records the defeat.
So it's confirmed.
It's confirmed. And after this victory, Pulakesin adopts the title Paramesvara, which means Supreme Lord. It was a direct challenge to Harsha's claims.
So the Narmada River essentially became the border.
Exactly. For the rest of their reigns, it established this clear north-south divide. Harsha ruled north of the river, Pulakesin ruled south. And this is a crucial distinction for the exam. It shows that Harsha was not an all-India ruler in the same way that Ashoka or the later Guptas were. His power had very hard, very clear limits.
That's a really important nuance. Okay, let's peel back the curtain. Let's look at how he actually ran this northern empire. We often hear this era described as a kind of bridge to the medieval period. What does that mean in terms of his administration?
Well, if you were to just look at an org chart, it would look very familiar, very much like the Guptas. You have the same terminology. You have bhuktis for provinces and vishayas for districts, but the engine driving the whole thing is different. The administration was becoming increasingly decentralized. It was becoming, in a word, feudal.
Now, feudalism is one of those big textbook words that can make people's eyes glaze over. Can you break that down? What does it actually look like on the ground?
Let's use an analogy. Think of it like this. In the Mauryan Empire, the king had a massive central treasury filled with cash. He paid his officers, his generals, his soldiers in salary, cold, hard cash.
Okay, a centralized payroll system.
Exactly. Now, fast forward to Harsha's time. For reasons we'll get into, that cash economy is drying up.
Yeah.
There are fewer coins in circulation. So how do you pay your top general? You can't just give him a sack of gold coins.
So what do?
You give him a piece of land instead. You say, look, I can't pay you a salary, but here's the revenue from these 10 villages. You are responsible for collecting the tax. You keep a share for yourself. You use the rest to maintain your troops, and you send me a small portion.
That sounds kind of like getting paid in company stock instead of a salary.
It's exactly like that. It sounds good at first. But the problem is, when you give someone land, you're not just giving them money. You're giving them power. These officers become local landlords. Their posts become hereditary, passed from father to son. They build their own little forts.
And I'm guessing as long as Harsha is strong and alive, they listen to him. But the moment the center is weak,
they act like little kings themselves.
Precisely.
This decentralization, this system of land grants in lieu of salary, is the very seed of what we call Indian feudalism. And it ultimately weakened the central state significantly compared to the ancient empires.
I want to flag a specific term from the source material here, just for our note takers. Nilopitu. What was that?
Yes, Nilopitu. This was the name for the archives during the Harsha period.
The archives, so like the National Records Office.
Kind of. The sources say they were managed by special officers who recorded good and bad events. Now that's interesting because it implies there was some record of state affairs, maybe even mistakes or natural disasters, not just pure propaganda like the Harshacharita.
Right. Now I want to jump to a very specific connection to a previous year question. The outline mentions a 2013 UPSC prelims question about law and order under Harsha. This seems like a really important area.
It's a classic trap question. UPSC absolutely loves to compare the Gupta Age with Harsha's age. And this is one of the key points of contrast.
So let's set the baseline. We have Hiuen, the Chinese traveler who visited during the Gupta period, long before Harsha. What did he say about safety?
Hiuen wrote that the Gupta Empire was incredibly safe and peaceful. He said you could travel from one end to the other without needing a passport, and there was virtually no fear of thieves or bandits. He paints a picture of a pacifist paradise.
Okay, so that's the Gupta Golden Age image. And then comes our friend Xuanzang in Harsha's time.
And Xuanzang paints a very, very different picture. He explicitly notes in his travelogue that the roads and river rates were not completely immune from robbery.
In fact, didn't Xuanzang get mugged himself?
Multiple times. It's almost comical if it weren't so terrifying. He was stripped of his clothes by bandits, chased by highwaymen, and in one particularly harrowing incident, he was captured by river pirates on the Ganges who wanted to sacrifice him to the goddess Durga.
Whoa. That is not a glowing review for the Imperial Tourism Board. Come to Harsha's India, you might get sacrificed.
He only barely escaped because a sudden, violent storm came up and terrified the pirates into letting him go. But the point for the exam is crystal clear. Internal security had declined significantly since the Gupta era. The state could no longer guarantee safety on its own highways.
So if a question asks, was law and order perfect under Harsha as described by Xuanzang? The answer is a hard no.
A very hard no. And the nature of punishments reflects this growing insecurity. To
Wow.
keep order, the punishments for crimes became much more severe.
How severe are we talking?
Xuanzang himself calls them barbarous and superstitious. They brought back practices like mutilation, cutting off a hand or a nose for serious crimes. And, importantly, they relied heavily on trials by ordeal.
Like the medieval witch trials in Europe.
Very similar concept. Trial by fire, by water, by poison. If you can hold a piece of red-hot iron and your hand doesn't get burned, you're declared innocent. If you're thrown in a river and you sink, you're guilty. It wasn't a forensic legal system based on evidence. It was about appealing to divine intervention.
That's a pretty stark picture. Okay, let's look at the wallet. You mentioned the land grants and the drying up of the cash economy. What did the broader economy look like during this period?
This is another area where you can make what we call an expert statement in your mains answers. During the height of the Gupta period, you had booming international trade, especially with the Roman Empire. Roman gold was flowing into India. Cities were vibrant hubs of commerce.
And under Harsha, what's the trend?
We see a distinct decline in both trade and commerce.
Okay, how do we know that? What's the evidence?
It's numismatics, the study of coins. We simply find far fewer coins from Harsha's period compared to the Guptas. And the coins we do find are often debased, meaning they have less gold or silver content. The quality of the currency went down.
So the money was literally disappearing from the system.
Yes. And as trade declined, the great urban centers, the cities that depended on that trade, began to shrink. We see the corresponding rise of what historians call the self-sufficient village economy.
What does that mean in simple terms?
It means the average village was producing almost everything it needed, its own food, its own clothes, its own tools locally. They weren't producing a large surplus for export anymore. They weren't buying many things from far away. The economy was turning inward, becoming more localized.
So less global trade, more local survival.
Exactly. This economic contraction is one of the key hallmarks of the transition from the ancient to the early medieval period in India.
And socially, how did this impact people? What was society like?
The fourfold Varna system, the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaisya, Sudra division, became more rigid. But perhaps the most depressing chapter is the clear decline in the status of women.
Was it worse than during the Gupta period?
Unfortunately, yes, the evidence points that way. The ancient practice of Swayamvara, where a noble woman could choose her own husband in a grand ceremony, had all but vanished. Widow remarriage, which was permitted in some earlier texts, was now strictly forbidden, at least among the higher castes.
And Harsha's own sister. You mentioned Sati.
Yes, the prevalence of sati. The fact that Harsha had to physically intervene to save his sister from the funeral pyre shows that the societal pressure for a widow to end her life was immense. It paints a picture of a society that is becoming more conservative, more patriarchal, more rigid.
It sounds like a pretty grim time in many ways. But strangely enough, amidst all this economic contraction and social rigidity, you have this explosion in religion and culture, right? It seems like a paradox.
Oh, absolutely. Harsha was a man of grand gestures. He loved a spectacle, especially a religious one.
He started out as a Saiva, right? A worshiper of Shiva.
Yes, that was his family tradition. But later in his life, largely under the influence of his sister Rajayasri, who was a devout Buddhist, and of course Xuanzang, he converted to Mahayana Buddhism.
And did that change his state policies?
It did. He became a major patron. He prohibited the slaughter of animals for food across his empire. He built thousands of stupas and viharas and rest houses for pilgrims. But he didn't just pray quietly. He held these massive, spectacular religious assemblies.
Tell us about the Kanauj assembly. What was that all about?
This was essentially a grand theological conference, but with a clear agenda. Harsha called it to honor Xuanzang and to publicly preach the superiority of Mahayana Buddhist doctrines over all other faiths.
How big are we talking? A few dozen scholars?
There are 20 kings, thousands of scholars, Buddhist monks, Brahmins, and Jains. The whole event went on for 23 days. It was a massive affair.
Sounds impressive. Was it a peaceful exchange of ideas?
Not even close. It was a power play. Harsha clearly favored Xuanzang and the Mahayana Buddhists, placing them in the seat of honor. This, as you can imagine, enraged the Brahmins and the followers of the Hinayana school of Buddhism.
So there's trouble.
Trouble is an understatement. The sources say that violence broke out. Someone intentionally set fire to a huge tower that had been built for the assembly. And amidst the chaos and confusion, an assassin armed with a knife tried to stab Harsha.
An assassination attempt at a religious conference.
Yes. It shows that while Harsha preached tolerance, the religious tensions were bubbling just beneath the surface. He had to arrest the conspirators. Some sources say 500 Brahmins were banished from the kingdom before the conference could even finish.
Wow. Harsha really couldn't catch a break, could he? Drama just followed him everywhere.
It really did.
And then there was the second big event, the Allahabad Conference, held at Prayag.
Yes. This is often seen as the ancient ancestor of the modern Kumbh Mela. Harsha held this grand assembly every 5 years at the confluence of the Ganges, Yamuna, and the mythical Saraswati. And this event is famous for one thing, the ritual of dana, or giving.
How generous was he?
Unbelievably, almost ridiculously so. Xuanzang, who was an eyewitness, writes that Harsha would empty the entire royal treasury. He would give away the accumulated wealth of the past 5 years.
Wait, everything? The entire state budget?
Everything. Gold, pearls, silks, you name it. He would distribute it to the Buddhist monks, to the Brahmins, to the Jains, to the poor, the orphans, the destitute. He would just keep giving and giving until the treasury was completely bare.
And then what?
This is the most amazing part of the story. The accounts say that when there was nothing left in the treasury, he would then take off his own personal jewels, his necklaces, his rings, and his priceless royal robes and give them away.
You're joking.
Not according to Xuanzang. He would end up having to ask his sister, Rajiasri, for a simple second-hand garment to wear because he had given away literally everything he owned.
He literally gave the shirt off his back.
He did. It was a performance, of course, but a powerful one. A performance of total detachment. A king demonstrating to his people that he was not bound by material wealth. It won him immense respect and religious merit.
That is an incredibly powerful image. Now, we can't talk about Harsha and Xuanzang without talking about the intellectual heartbeat of the entire era.
Nalanda University.
The Ivy League of the East.
Or perhaps the Ivy League is the Nalanda of the West. Nalanda was at its absolute zenith under Harsha's patronage. It had been founded earlier by the Gupta king Kumaragupta III, but Harsha really took it to the next level.
And since Xuanzang studied there, we have a really vivid first-hand description of what it was like.
We do. And it was revolutionary. It was a fully residential university, perhaps the first of its kind in the world. It provided free boarding, lodging, medicine, and even clothes to thousands of students and scholars from all over Asia.
Free college? I mean, how on earth did they pay for all that?
The revenue model was fascinating and quite brilliant. Harsha and other kings before him had assigned the tax revenue of about 100 to 200 villages specifically to the university.
So the village's taxes went directly to funding the university.
Literally, every day, cartloads of rice, butter, and milk would arrive from these endowed villages. It was a self-sustaining intellectual ecosystem, independent of the daily whims of the royal treasury.
And was it hard to get in, or could anyone just show up?
Oh, it was extremely difficult. The gatekeepers of Nalanda weren't guards. They were profound scholars who would quiz you at the main gate. This was the entrance exam. Xuanzang says that only about 20% to 30% of the candidates who showed up actually passed this oral exam.
So a 70 to 80% rejection rate. That's more selective than Harvard today.
It was for the absolute elite of the intellectual world. And they didn't just study Buddhism. The curriculum was vast. They studied the Vedas, logic, which was called Hituvidya, grammar or Sadhavidya, and even medicine, Chikitsavidya. It was a holistic, rigorous, and completely secular education in many respects.
And who are the professors? The rock stars of Nalanda.
They were giants of intellect. The two most famous during this period were Dharmapala and Silabhadra. And here's a little detail I just love. It shows the interconnectedness of India. Dharmapala was actually from Kanchipuram, way down in the deep south, in modern Tamil Nadu.
That's a massive journey to make in the 7th century.
A huge journey. Shows that despite the political fragmentation, Harsha in the north, Pulakesin in the south, these guys were at war. The intellectual unity of India was still very much intact. Scholars moved freely across these political borders in search of knowledge.
Okay, so Harsha, this larger-than-life figure, dies in 647 AD. The light goes out. What happens next does the empire continue?
The vacuum returns, almost instantly. Harsha, for all his greatness, left no strong heir. His minister ended up usurping the throne, and the empire gesture. It disintegrated almost immediately back into those small, warring states.
So it's like the band broke up the moment the lead singer left the stage.
That's a perfect analogy. The empire was held together by his personal charisma and military might. Without him, it just fell apart. This really ushers in the early medieval period, the age of the Rajputs, characterized by constant feudal warfare and political fragmentation.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to flag a specific term that appears in the post-Harsha context in our notes, and it's specifically linked to a PYQ. The word is Hundi.
Yes, Hundi. This is a crucial term for understanding the medieval economy that followed Harsha.
So what exactly is a Hundi?
In simple terms, in the post-Harsha period, a Hundi referred to a bill of exchange.
Like a traveler's check from the old days?
Exactly like a traveler's check.
Yeah.
Remember what we said about the roads being unsafe?
Yeah.
Robbers everywhere? So imagine you're a merchant. You can't possibly carry bags and bags of gold coins from Kanauj all the way to Bengal. It's a suicide mission. So what you do is you go to a trusted banker, a shraf in Kanauj. You deposit your gold with him. He gives you a piece of paper, a Hundi, which is basically a signed IOU.
Okay.
You then travel to Bengal with just that lightweight, easy-to-hide piece of paper. You find the banker's partner or agent in Bengal. You present the Hundi, and he gives you the equivalent amount in cash minus a small commission.
That is incredibly sophisticated for the time.
It is. It shows that even though the central state was weak and travel was dangerous, the market found a way. Financial innovation happened at a pure necessity.
Hundi equals bill of exchange. Got it. Locked in. And one last vocabulary check for the listeners, because UPSC loves these match the pairs questions.
Right.
What are Parivrajaka and Upasaka?
Good ones. A Parivrajaka literally means a wanderer. It refers to a renunciant, an ascetic, someone who has left their home to seek spiritual truth, moving from place to place.
A wandering ascetic. Got it. And Upasaka?
An Upasaka refers to a lay follower of Buddhism. This is someone who believes in the Buddha's teachings, supports the monks with food and money, but hasn't taken the vows to become a monk or nun themselves. They live a normal householder's life while following the path.
So Parivrajaka, wanderer, Upasaka, lay follower, easy marks on the exam if you just memorize them.
Absolutely. They are low-hanging fruit.
So looking back at Harsha's entire reign, what is the final verdict? How should a student summarize him?
I think the best way to see Harsha is as the sunset of the ancient era in India. He was a brilliant individual, no doubt about it. A great conqueror, a talented poet, a generous patron. He tried to hold that classical model of a unified empire together through sheer force of will.
But
the tides of history were already turning against him. The forces of feudalism, of regionalism, of economic contraction, they were too strong. He was in the dawn of a new age. He was the last great emperor of the old one. He was, in essence, a bridge to the medieval world.
all right, here's a final thought to leave you with, learner. A provocative question. If Harsha had won the Battle of the Narmada, if he had somehow defeated Pulakesin II and unified both the North and the South into a single empire, would the political fragmentation that followed, the fragmentation that eventually made India vulnerable to the invasions from the Northwest, would any of that have happened?
It's one of the great what-ifs of Indian history, isn't it? A politically unified India in the 8th and 9th centuries might have weathered the storms of the next few centuries very, very differently. But, well, history only happens once.
That is definitely something to chew on. We really hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the complex and dramatic era of Harshavardhana.
It was a real pleasure to unpack all of this.
This deep dive was brought to you by Simplified UPSC by PPP. If this breakdown helped you see the story behind the facts, please do us a favor and subscribe to the channel.
And if you're in a position to do so, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It genuinely allows us to keep digging deeper and creating this content. And a huge thank you to everyone who already supports us.
Don't forget to like the video and share your valuable comments. We want to know what you think about Harsha. Was he a hero or was he overrated? Let us know.
And go grab those free notes on the public Telegram channel. You need to practice those PYQs. It makes all the difference.
Or, for the full experience, join the private Telegram library. You get the detailed notes, the mains answers, the whole works. Just DM us on the public channel to get in.
Until next time, keep learning.
Signing off.